Clay Henry has not lost his mind. He's with us right now, publisher and editor of Hogs Illustrated. Clay, how's your frigid morning on the Norfolk River?
Hey, this is down in a little hole. You've got hills all around, and the cold air is just sunk down in here, and I'm ready for the sun to come out, maybe this afternoon.
I'm sure. I'll ask you a fishing question every once in a while, and we'll get into all the football stuff too. But have you ever ice fished?
No, I've talked to Frank Ragnow about that. He does that in Minnesota, and it was hilarious. The best story I heard from him about ice fishing is that this was after he'd been drafted and, obviously got his payday. I don't think he'd signed, but what happens is as soon as you're drafted, the agent gives you a debit card and, okay, they know you're good for a first-round pick. You're good for millions. So you get a nice debit card and you're able to, take care of your needs. And so he got an update, like a iPhone 10 or whatever the latest one was. And he's ice fishing. And he catches a fish, and he gets his phone out to take a picture. You don't know what you have until it comes up the hole, right? And that phone just, his hands are cold. It slips straight out, and it goes straight down the hole.
Oh, no.
That would be, it could hit anywhere, but it hit in that 6-inch hole or whatever that hole is, and it went straight down, gone.
Where would be the closest place to go ice fishing in Arkansas would be?
Well, I think you'd get in your car and you'd drive about 12 hours straight north.
You better drive to Minnesota.
That's what I was saying. I didn't know if it'd be Minnesota or I didn't. Okay.
South Dakota.
Freezer.
No, I mean North Dakota maybe. It'd have to be probably. They're not frozen solid yet up there. You'd have to be in, close to the Arctic Circle at this point. I mean, we're still mid-December, but in January, I think you can probably go out there and sit in your little huts. One of my favorite movies is Walter Matthau and
Grumpy Old Men.
Jack Lemmon.
Yeah,
and they're ice fishing, and that's the best visual that you could make, and they've got their little heaters out there, and I'm sure it's not that bad. When you're in a shack and you've got a heater, and it's kind of like some of these fancy duck clubs where they've got a grill and they're cooking breakfast while you're out there. So it's not like, it's like okay, not you got to take your gloves off to eat the food, and your fingers can get cold there, but it isn't bad. So,
well, I just remember I love that movie for so many reasons, and two of those reasons are Sophia Loren and Anne Margaret, my friend.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
Let's get into some of this recruiting stuff here, because you've got today's a big day. It's commitmica, flipmas, whatever it is you want to call it. And they're yours. They signed. Right, they're yours now. So, but today already you have two signees that we didn't know about coming into the day. I think a lot of people might have expected that Cameron Ball would become a Razorback, but he weren't sure. He hadn't committed. He signs. He's a defensive tackle. The JUCO defensive tackle. So we're seeing adding to a position group. One of them hopefully can play for you next year on that defensive line. But we've talked so much about how the necessary rebuild is a long rebuild, but it's at the line of scrimmage, and that's what these two signees that sort of didn't come out of nowhere, but weren't part of the 20 signees. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, that gives them 3 defensive linemen with Solomon Wright from Oklahoma, and the junior college guy, Jalen Williams, I think is him, and he's the number 1 junior college defensive lineman, and those guys typically play right away. I mean, he's going to be here in January, which is critical. It's really tough sometimes. You get these junior college guys, and I remember Dorian Gerald gets to school the day the practice starts, and then he's got to sit out 3 days, that do the acclimation and the physical and all that, and then he's just behind. I mean, he didn't have a proper weight program, so the fact that this guy from Mississippi Junior College is going to be here in January is huge to get him in the weight program and acclimated.
I was going to say Jalen Williams is he's a big old boy. He's 6'3", 310 pounds is Jalen Williams. We got Clay Henry here with us on halftime. Clay,
I think we just lost Clay.
Did we lose Clay?
He's not there. Yeah.
Well, we'll see if we can get Clay back here connected again. But yeah, Phil, I mean, you're talking about Jalen Williams and that defensive line. I mean, you've added Cameron Ball, 6'5", 303 pounds. Jalen Williams, 6'3", 310 pounds. On the offensive line, Devin Manuel, 6'9", 292. You're adding some beef up front. And maybe not – I mean, obviously you want the hype, but you want the beef that way they can block better and give KJ Jefferson, Malik Hornsby, or whatever quarterback ends up starting for this team next season.
And one of the other things that stands out about this incoming class, it is really balanced between offense and defense. You know, I mean, you've got – I think it was I did it by position groups yesterday, and this was before the announcements of Jalen of the JUCO defensive tackle. I can't remember his name. I'm gonna have to remember his name a little more often here. And Cameron Ball. So you've got now 3 defensive tackles, 3 defensive backs, 3 linebackers. Nice and symmetrical. I think that's the word Clay used, and I think I hear Clay again. Clay, you back with us?
Yeah, you're symmetrical. You like that, huh?
I do like that. It's a great geometrical term.
Well, and that's the critical aspect. And you got to fill needs, and they did that. But they signed a quarterback. They signed the number 1 kicker in the country. They've got a preferred walk-on commitment from the number 1 long snapper. There's you look at the list, and sometimes it says athlete, sometimes it said wide receiver. But in any respect, there's maybe 3 of these guys, maybe 4 that return kicks, and that was once they lost Devion Warren, and I think Burks got his knee banged up, and they decided not to use him. They've got more guys that can return kicks, so their special teams should get better. 4 cornerback/safeties, 2 or 3 linebackers, depending on how you read one of them. I think that Christopher Paul, the linebacker from Georgia, that was really critical, and was really close friends with Cameron Ball, and I think that was you get him at the end, probably because of Paul. These guys, in their speed throughout. I mean, it's an SEC class. Now, it's better than what they've been doing, and I think it's symbolic of what you get, when Sam Pittman and his staff gets a full year to recruit. I really like Terry Wells from Wynn, offensive tackle. Was probably rated higher last year than he was this year, and you never know about how Arkansas kids are rated, but I think that he was the first commitment, and really is a talented offensive tackle, and I'm excited about where they're going on both sides of the ball in the line, the trenches, and that's where I look every week and to see how you match up, and Arkansas needed some help there.
Got about a minute left in the segment here. I want to ask a question that JT asked, and I could kind of answer his question too. I think he asked if now that you got a couple of defensive tackles on the class, do you think that perhaps next year, if Barry Odom wants, you could do 4 down linemen up front, or still be 3 down line because the depth is not there? And I think my answer would be it really depends on which seniors are coming back.
Yeah, I think it all depends on it's like in where do these guys, how quickly are they able to play? You think that they'll be able to play fast? I think that maybe you can play 4, but it's they're getting closer to that, and it also depends on who those other guys that you want. You get your best 11 on the field, Phil. Yeah. That's what it's about.
Mm-hmm. All right, stick around for another segment with us, Clay. Don't forget that if you own a business that needs more security or needs more curb appeal, get on the horn and call the fence man at 479-782-3936. Nobody does it any better in custom installations and things like gates, controlled access card readers. Fenceman will be there for a quick, no obligations quote if you call 479-782-3936. The Fenceman is a division of Quantum Property Services. All right, we got Clay for another segment. If you got a question for him, get it to us at 877-377-6963. Halftime, back after this quick break. All right, we got Clay Henry for another segment here as SmackDown, the singer.
Either one of y'all remember 8-tracks?
Of course I remember 8-tracks. When I was born, first few years of my life, my parents' cars had 8-track machines inside, Clay. That was all the rage then.
I think my mom's car had one when I was a kid.
One of my older brother, I said something about when I was in college, like I need an 8-track player for my car, and one materialized. I never knew where he got that, and I really don't want to know. It wasn't brand new, and we installed it, and then I got Johnny Cash and Earth, Wind, and Fire. Those were my 2 8-tracks.
Man, you're talking 1970s music and great music when you're talking 8-tracks.
Yeah, this would have been 74, I'm guessing.
So I think you bringing up 8-tracks. I think and I said something to Mom about this. I might be getting a record player for Christmas.
Like a vinyl
record player. What would be, what's an old school, like you brought up having Earth, Wind, and Fire and Johnny Cash on the 8-track. What's like a good old school record I should go try to dig up and find?
The Beatles. Get the Beatles, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. It's outstanding. It's great no matter how you listen to it. But I grew up listening to my parents' vinyl collection. They had all the Beatles albums. That's my favorite Beatles album.
Led Zeppelin 4.
Led Zeppelin 4.
No.
Clay, you got a suggestion for me?
I'm just going to remember what we had at our house when I was in probably junior high. I can remember my mother playing her album. Now, we didn't have any that the kids, I had 3 brothers. We didn't get any records. I mean, we just listened to what she had. She played Pete Fountain, the great, clarinet player from New Orleans. She played Herb Alpert. She loved, and let's see, Al Hurt. That's what I grew up listening to. And guess what? I played the trumpet as a 6th and 7th and 8th grader. I mean, it was just bought and materialized, and you're going to learn how to play the trumpet. And I was like, never was I any good. I mean, I think I might have made 3rd chair, in the band at Pulaski Heights Junior High.
Did you want to be in the Tijuana Brass?
Oh yeah. In one of the coolest things, we went one time to Ensenada, down from San Diego, on the tourist bus trip, and went into a place our family did, and they had I don't know would a mariachi band have to have just 4? What would you call it if they had like 10 trumpet players?
That sounds like an ensemble.
And they were there. It was lunchtime, and we were the only people in you'd call it the cantina, and I mentioned that I could play the trumpet. And one of them pointed at me and handed it to him, and I joined, the little group. Yeah.
I can't play.
I just hit a couple of notes. Yeah.
Never could play an instrument. Clay, I could imagine Orville was telling you, go out to the garage and practice out there, please. Let me sit and think.
The general manager, at that particular time, the general manager of the Travelers was a trumpet player from St. Louis. And he taught private lessons. And all of this was a grand scheme that my dad and my mother had to make me a trumpet player, and it just didn't work. So
you became a sports writer anyway.
Became a sports writer anyway. Yeah, but my mother did make me take 7th grade typing, which now they call it, what do they call it, keyboarding?
Yeah, that's right.
That was the best thing that she ever did for me, yeah. Now, I don't know what questions y'all are going to ask. I just derailed y'all, right?
I was just fine talking music.
These are the best conversations.
Yeah, these are always the best stuff. All right, let's get into Auburn for a moment here. Is Kevin Steele going to be the head coach there? Is he just going to be held on as a defensive coordinator, and the next coach is kind of forced to keep him? Auburn's recruiting class is decimated right now. I don't. What do you think? What do you think is going to happen on the Plains?
Who knows? And it might depend on if they can get Hugh Freeze. I mean, if anybody in the SEC can have him back after what he pulled at Ole Miss. And the Kevin Steele stuff. I can't tell if it's window dressing, if it's like, okay, we have to act like we're interested because we sure don't want to lose him as a defensive coordinator, and so let's go through the motions of interviewing him. Or is he now a serious candidate? He's a heck of a coach. He flopped famously at Baylor. I mean, it was just awful. I know him. I covered him, when my Tulsa World days. He was at Oklahoma State briefly, then at Nebraska. I mean, I got a great Kevin Steele story. I mean, he's a first time, just got to Nebraska. Tom Osborne's the coach. They've got a host of All-America defensive ends. I mean, they're 3 deep. First day of spring practice, there's a guy going through the motions. I mean, he's an All-American. He knows what am I out here doing in spring practice? So Kevin Steele goes off on him. I mean, uses all the bad words. And all at once, Tom Osborne is standing behind him. He's like tapping him on the shoulder. He goes, "Coach, we don't talk to our players like that. What do we do?" He says, "You put him over the sidelines and you let the next boy play." And walked away. Oh, and Kevin Steele told that story on himself, and it's amazing. You just look at these guys' resumes and imagine where they've been, who they've been around, and there's some great stories. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and Steele's worked for a whole lot of legends.
Oh, yeah.
So let's keep the conversation on coaches here, because do you think that the Arkansas coaching staff can and will stay together for a second year under Sam Pittman? Because, I mean, it's a really good coaching staff all the way down. And, a lot of people are calling for Scott Fountain's head. He was a great special teams coach at Georgia, and this 1 year at Arkansas probably doesn't change that very much. But I wanted to get your thoughts on, it would be a good thing to keep that coaching staff consistent because they all seem to be somewhat in lockstep together.
Oh, I think it's a really good staff, and I think Scott Fountain will work out just fine. And they just signed the number 1 kicker in the country, and top long snapper, all these punt and kickoff return guys. And I mean, when you looked at their cover teams, I mean, they don't have enough cornerbacks. They don't have enough linebackers. We know that. I mean, it was week to week to get them out there. Well, what do you make up cover teams with? They're all linebackers and cornerbacks and safeties. And you can't put Jalen Catalon out there. I saw him a couple of times on cover teams, but that's when you're playing 80 snaps of defense and then he's like, okay, we're going to put you on another 15 snaps of special teams. And they played Jonathan Marshall on special teams, which, the LSU game ended up putting him over 100 snaps. So I think that it's as this team gets more depth and they get, you get away from COVID, the special teams are going to get better. And they weren't good. There were issues every week that seemed to be different, but I don't think it's necessarily Scott Fountain.
Clay Henry here with us on Halftime. Clay, we kind of bringing the Auburn conversation back into it, and obviously we've seen coaching changes with them, South Carolina, Vanderbilt. As we stand right now, do you think we're done seeing coaching changes in the SEC, or do you think there's more to come?
Oh, I think that there's still another week of the season, so to speak, but I think that they probably are. I mean, I don't, unless there's somebody that just jumps to another job, you get the domino effect, but I don't think there's going to be any guys fired. I don't think Nick Saban's retiring. I don't think Dan Mullen's not going anywhere from Florida. I mean, it's I guess there could be a job open up that Mark Stoops would be coveted. I mean, I think he's a really good coach that somebody might grab eventually. That he's done enough at Kentucky to deserve a promotion out of there. But yeah, that's what would have to happen for there to be another change.
Let's see, Clay. Just got a little bit of time left. What do you expect to see Saturday in the SEC championship game? Think Florida can keep it close? Because there hasn't been a single close Alabama game all year long.
No, this is. I think what's happening with Alabama is interesting because early in the year I did not think they were very good on defense, and the Ole Miss game was kind of affirmation of that. But slowly but surely they have gotten it together and gotten better and better on defense, and I think that they can cause some problems for Florida that LSU caused with their rush, and that was a little different in that Trask was pressured more than he'd been of in recent weeks, and that Florida defense has sure got some holes. And they're probably none of their guys are going to throw a shoe this week, but the defense might throw a shoe collectively.
Just imagine what Nick Saban would do if one of his players threw a shoe that cost him potentially a game. Oh my gosh!
I would pay money to see that.
Yeah, Clay, thanks a lot, man.
I think that's not going to happen. Yeah,
that's doubtful. Doubtful. All right.
Me play a trumpet again. That's not going to happen.
Clay, I'm not on next Wednesday, so Merry Christmas. Look forward to
Merry
talking
Christmas
in the
to
new year.
you guys, all of you.
Thanks.